All right, folks, welcome back. And of course, we're all talking about the apparent beheading of yet another American hostage at the hands of ISIS, Stephen Sotloff. Video reportedly showing his execution at the hands of ISIS terrorists. And joining us now is Msgr. Jim Lisante, pastor of Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Massapequa Park, New York, and co-host of Close Encounter, and a Fox News contributor, and the author, and I want to put this book up on the screen right there for you, the author of More of Life and Love, a great paperback book. And Msgr, welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me,
Always
Steve.
great to see you. Before we get to the book, your reaction to yet another barbaric act by a barbaric group?
You know, for us in the church, this has started the whole discussion of what makes a just war. Should America once again be involved in a war with ISIS? And you know, the teaching has always been, Steve, that first of all, you have to defend the innocent. And all these guys who are being murdered, all the people over there, Muslims and Christians and everyone in between, are all innocent victims of a really genocidal group of people. So I love the fact that even Pope Francis, you know, popes always talk peace, 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 but even he says there may be justification for using force to prevent the killing of the innocent. The other thing in any just war discussion you have to have is a sense that if you don't do something, much worse will happen. And we know for all those innocent people who will be slaughtered, if we do nothing, certainly evil will triumph, which we don't want.
Absolutely, and you know, the president had referred to the fact early on that ISIS in the long run will not win out, and I think it was Bill Kristol, the Weekly Standard, said to me, okay, the Nazis in the long run didn't win out, but how many millions of people did they kill?
Right.
You can't sit back and just let you know, fate take hold.
It's unfortunate that he's not moving more quickly. I realize he has to make nuanced decisions, but at the same time, sometimes, unfortunately, he's looking like nothing is being done, or very limitedly. His bombing, certainly, to drive back ISIS, we fully support. But you know what's really sad in all this, Steve, is as a religious guy, whenever people use religion as a wedge or as a way to kill people, you just say, God, have they misinterpreted what God is all about? They say Ali Akbar all the time. God is great. One of the reasons God is great is because he creates human beings. To slaughter other human beings, especially those who are innocent and guilty of nothing, seems particularly heinous.
Absolutely. Now, let me just ask you, there have been reports that the Pope had been threatened by ISIS. That was denied by the Vatican, yet they, and very smart of them to do so, have stepped up their security around the Pope. Now, this is a Pope who, you know, drives in the Kia and meets with the people and stays and goes to the hotel by himself and whatever. But I think hopefully reason will prevail, and he will be more aware of his security needs.
I love his freedom to greet people and be one with people and love people and hug people, but these are critical times. And you know, it's not like we don't have a history here. Another devout Muslim, so-called, shot John Paul II, so this has been done before. And as you know, John Paul II, great man that he was, forgave the guy who shot him. I would like Francis to never be in that position of having to forgive anyone, you know.
You had mentioned the Pope's stance on possible use of force against ISIS. He's also donated about $1 million to the Iraqi refugees, which I thought was very nice.
You know, Steve, we have a collection every year in the church called Peter's Pence, Peter being the Pope. And we give it knowing that the Pope is going to use it for something good, and that's what he's using now. This money that he's always been given by Catholics around the world, they say, Holy Father, we trust you. And we really do trust this guy. So if he says, I'm going to spend millions of the Vatican treasury on helping people who are refugees and have no food or water, God bless him for doing it. He's using the money that we, many Americans, have given for that very purpose.
You know, you hear so much in the media. There are people out there, maybe not right at this moment, but Rosie O'Donnell and others who have talked about radical Christianity being just as dangerous as radical Islam. And I've gotten phone calls like that as a radio host over the years. And when you press these people to, well, where were the Timothy McVeigh? Well, first of all, Timothy McVeigh, I don't even know if he was a Christian. He certainly didn't say Jesus Christ when he blew up the building. So there is no analogy to be made, certainly. But that must it drives me nuts. It must drive you crazy.
You know, happily, I'm happy as a Catholic that when in recent times any Catholic has been guilty of any kind of violence, our leadership has spoken up, and I'm looking for more and more of my Muslim brothers and sisters to say this is not our faith. You know that back in the 90s and 80s, we had a few guys disturb people who would like attack abortion clinics.
Right.
And it was the American bishops who came out and said, hey, wait a second,
Absolutely.
you can't be pro-life and hurt people.
Right.
To be pro-life is to celebrate life.
Right.
You can't do it. So I wish that more of our folks around the world would say, you cannot be a religious person and compromise God's gift of human life.
And they also bring up the abortion doctor deaths, and I say, what are we talking about? One is too many, but 2, 3, 4, I don't know. Compared to a worldwide movement of Islamic fundamentalism.
I always like to say that no one has done more for the poor, for the homeless, for people with AIDS. No one has done more than the Catholic Church. So I hope the Rosies of the world can put away their anger and realize there's a lot of good out there.
Don't hold your breath there. All right, your book, More of Life and Love. Maybe Rosie should read the book. Talk about what's in it, why you wrote it.
I'm trying to help families to learn in this crazy time when we're busier than ever how to make time for God and how to make time for family. You know, I interviewed Mark Teixeira from the New York Yankees not too long ago, and he said, it's so clear in my life. Number 1 priority is God, number 2 is family, way down the line is baseball. And I said, but you would be famous without baseball. And he said, but if you're right with God and right with your family, everything else will follow through. And that's what I'm trying to get across in this book is how do we prioritize our lives to make what matters really important. And you know, Steve, you're a family man, that if you leave your family behind and you leave your sense of the spiritual behind, what have you got at the end of the day?
I got a question for you, which is you might be able to answer, but I don't know. First of all, the good news is you did 8 weddings over the weekend, so that I don't know if I'm speaking out of school, but that's a positive note, I think.
Yes, it is.
But you know, we all experience tragedy, the loss of a loved one, the friend, or whatever, and we always say, that's it. I'm rearranging my priorities. I know it's important now. You know, screw this, screw that, pardon the expression. But now I'm focused. Now I'm not going to take anything for granted anymore. And maybe a day later or 2 days later, you're back to the same old. How do you keep that? How do you keep the priorities your priorities?
A grand resolution almost never works, so you have to get rid of them. But little by little, you know, I say to people, don't say, you know, I've said people say to me, I'm going to now get into the Bible, I'm going to read the whole thing, and I say, can you read 5 minutes a day? Because if you start slow and you actually follow through, you'll feel good about yourself and you'll accomplish much more than the grand gesture.
And you'll grasp it a little at a time.
You don't like what's going on between you and your wife, then take a little time. Go on a date once a week. Go on a date once a month. But work on the relationship and don't make grand promises to yourself that you won't keep. You know, people say to me, I don't need to go to church to be a spiritual person, but are you really making time for God any other way? So there's 168 hours of life in every week. We find the time to eat, to sleep, to go to work. I'm saying, can you give me one of those 168 to pray, to reflect, to examine what does God want from me? Where am I heading in my life? What's the purpose of my life? I hope people will make the time.
Very good advice. And folks, More of Life and Love by Msgr Jim Lisante. Thank you. So it's always
Steve,
so good to see you.
Great
Thank
to be
you very much.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Very interesting conversation. Pick up the book. It was right there up on the screen. And we'll be back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show right after the break. So don't you go away. Newsmax Television.